It's time to let you finish.
Who won last night's basketball game? Who won? The Knicks. The Knicks. The Knicks
did win.
The team that are vaccinated. We'll talk about that later. Hello, Courtney. Hello.
Hey guys, welcome. It's time to let you finish with Courtney and Amy, and we have a special guest this episode, Joe Kwaczala from Who Cares About
the
Rock Hall podcast, also on the Pantheon podcast network.
Our first cross-promotional guest. This is so meta. I love it.
Actually, we probably should thank them because I want to say they were kind of unknowingly to them instrumental in kind of helping us.
I won't even say kinda. I won't even say kinda. If it wasn't
being
for
introduced
Joe,
to Pantheon.
Joe did the introduction.
And it all started over the mic, right? Amy and I, we had these old mics. We would use our starter mics. You know, I think everybody, when you first start podcasting, you don't know what the fuck to get. You're like, you start trying to figure it out. We had these cheap mics. We knew we had something, but we were like, God, this show sounds like shit. And she went on, the Who Cares About Rock podcast. And at the end of one of the shows was like, hey, where'd you get that mic?
Right. Because like all New Yorkers, I want to know, what do you pay for rent?
Right.
And where did you buy that?
And how much of a discount did you get?
How much of a discount?
I get one too.
Right. Score New Yorkers. It's one of the many things New York Jews and New York Black people have in common. How can this work for me?
Real and meaning it. Like, so where'd you get that?
And can you get me one too?
Exactly. So our Knicks won last night.
Yay.
They beat Philly for the first time since 2017, which makes me happy.
Makes me very happy.
I can't believe you said Philly was one of your backup teams. You know, there always been historically, there are like a big rival.
In the 80s.
No, that still carries on.
No, you know why? Okay, and then we'll move on. And I like Doug Collins. Uh-huh. Doug Collins was like one of the best six men.
Right.
And I had a little crush on Maurice Cheeks.
Okay. Did you?
Yeah. Little bit. And I actually saw him at a very well-known tournament in Fort Greene. And he was there for some reason. And I had a little moment. And I went up and said, are you Maurice Cheeks? He goes, yeah. And I went, I used to have a crush on you in the 80s. And he looked at me like, get away, white girl. You know that I love things.
Yeah,
I love things for reasons that have nothing to do with the actual anything.
Which is hilarious to me.
Nothing to do with the actual.
I liked it, but not because of that. Because of that. Guy was hot.
Yeah, cute. I thought he was very cute. Anyway, all right, let's kind of get into a mode. And why don't you intro? This is just tragically the story that's dominating headlines right now.
This Rust movie shooting. Every day it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And the only thing I can say about it is I feel really horrible for the young lady's family, her who lost her life, her husband, her child. And I feel bad for Alec Baldwin. It's like,
and the director family, he was shot as well, the director.
It's like, this is you and I, it's a hard one to talk about, but it comes back to really, I think about all of the gigs that I've done and the importance of making sure you try to hire the best people for the best things, because it really does make a difference when it comes down to how things work on the set. It sounds like, just from the things that are coming out, and because it's changing daily, it's like going into detail. It's changing by the minute. So that doesn't seem to make sense. I just say that it's a tragic situation. And hopefully this is a lesson to people about it's not always best trying to hire the cheapest. You have to hire the right people for real shit. You just do. Yeah,
it's very tragic. It would be wonderful. I understand why this is getting so much attention, but it would be wonderful if the thousands of people who are killed by guns every day in this country if their families got. But I understand 100% why this is I understand. But
17-year-old was killed around the corner from me yesterday, Amy, and I got texts from people saying that people were on their balcony with their phones, just shooting his body laying on the street.
Yeah.
17-year-old shot by a gun. They haven't found the person. So it's like gun violence is, and I'm with you with that. It's like, I get the celebrityness of this situation and it's really tragic, but we have and I'm not an anti-gun person. I think shooting guns is fun, but I will absolutely say we have a gun problem in this country. We're now, like, if you're on a movie set, you're getting killed by a gun.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I was going to say, so there's that aspect of it. And I would also we've just had this discussion, is no longer, you don't need to have any kind of gun on a set. We can CGI in everything, for crying out loud. We can make actors, they made Robert De Niro look young in a movie, okay? They can do anything they want with CGI. But the point about this, we have a hurry up, get it done society. Movies have been behind, because of COVID shutdown, but everybody wants to save money. And there is eventually, I think, going to come out, this is going to boil down to incompetence, but also incompetence based on the idea that, yeah, we want to get it done. We want to cut corners. We want to boom. So it's just tragic. It is looking like this will have an impact, because I saw that one show is now, a TV show, I think on ABC, is no longer going to use, there's no reason for guns. Right. I mean, there's no reason for guns on a set. You can do it all with CGI. End of story. I mean, it's ridiculous. They don't have actual space lasers in Star Wars. Do you think they're actually flying in space? Do you think that actor who's playing a Vietnam vet is actually an amputee? No. So, I mean, it's very sad. It's sad for everyone. I feel for Alec Baldwin. Whatever you may think of Alec Baldwin's politics and his personality, this is horrible. He did not set out to kill anyone. And this is just horrible. It's horrible for the woman's family. And it's just horrible. So hopefully this will end in something good, will come out of something absolutely horrible. So, yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Man. And speaking of horrible, the story that refuses to end.
Didn't he end? Okay. Did Dave Chappelle not start? I watched the entire special. Mm-hmm. He started the closer, which implies it's the end, by saying, this is the last time I'm going to talk about this. But yet, oops, he's still fucking talking about it. What does he want at this point? I'm being very serious. What does he want? I am tired of rich people screaming and yelling about being canceled. He's not canceled.
He's not canceled. First of all, nobody said he was canceled. Nobody said he was canceled. He's not canceled. Don't cancel yourself and then be like, he's not canceled. No one ever said he was canceled.
He still has a deal.
And now he's taking isn't he taking this special to arenas around?
No, it's a documentary. It's a documentary. He was working on a documentary about a series of shows that he did during COVID. Right. Damn it. Sorry.
I know it's playing in arenas. It's going to be playing.
Yeah,
and now he's saying that he's willing to talk to the trans community, but he's not going to bend to anybody's. And so I'm
willing to talk to the trans community as long as you listen to what I have to say. And we've had the discussion. You and I are in agreement that we are.
I'm like, stop paying attention to celebrities. They are not the fight. They're not the fight.
It's not even stop paying attention to celebrities, because he has a platform that many people don't have. The point is, to me, he has made his point, whether you agree, we disagree with him, but he has made a point. There is a valid conversation to be had about gender. I don't think his is the forum to have it, but the point is, you have said it, you have done the damage, whatever damage you want to think is done. You have heard from the other side. Enough. It's like, this is now going to be your new martyr. Dave Chappelle is not a martyr. He is not losing any money.
I think it's the more he talks about it and more people keep talking about it, it's a huge hit for Netflix and it's worldwide. So it's like, I think I said it on the show last week, just keep talking about it. It doesn't matter what you say, talk about me. And then more people tune in and it's a win for Netflix. It's a win for him. And, now his documentary will be playing in arenas and I'm sure he will sell out all of them with people going to see him and, whatever.
He would have before, though. Yeah. I mean, he would have before.
But this all drives tickets.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? This is all part of a plan. It just, Talk about me. Just keep talking. So all of the people who agree with me, just on principle, will make sure the shows sell out. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, I just think at this point he's done what he has to do, and the conversation is done. Mm-hmm. You said you were going to stop talking about it, then stop talking about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, how much closure do you fucking want?
Well, they like money, money, money.
Yeah, well, he's not. We don't have to have a bake sale for Dave Chappelle anytime soon. Yeah. All right. Well, somebody who is also going to make money, money, money is this little underground. We've been championing this woman for a while now. She's really underground. Came out of like sort of the garage, techno, Haifa-nation scene. What's her name? Adele?
Yeah, I don't know. Like some lady. I think she has a song.
Adele. That's it. Adele. Yeah. Yeah. So this really unheard of. I mean, oh my God, I hope she can make it. Singer. She just released her first single, and how many streams
6.
did it have?
Oh, something like 24 million in the UK and some ridiculous amount here. And of course, she's broken all kinds of records and things. And of course, the record has gone in #1 basically all around the globe and stuff. But in radio, she's got the most ads and media base and something. And she's like #1 at like 6 formats. But she's still really unknown, so I hope it works out for her.
I hope it works out for her. I mean, and you know what's really
evidently
sad?
She's doing 2 shows at Hyde Park in July. I really hope people come.
No, you know what's really sad, Courtney, is that there's been no campaign behind this. I mean, the poor girl has had to basically go door to door singing, putting up. I mean, listen, support your local struggling artist, please. Poor Adele.
Because she only had to buy her compound in LA because she could not afford that same compound in London.
And I think she bought her ex-husband's house across the street, which I kind of like, actually. I kind of like the fact that it's on
her compound that has 3 homes. And she couldn't do that same thing in the UK because it would be just hundreds of millions of pounds.
Go easy on her.
So she's really struggling.
She's struggling. All right. Speaking of struggle, Kyrie. I can't. Okay, I just want to say, I want to say one thing about Kyrie because I know you got. All right, so Kyrie Irving is blah blah blah. The Earth is flat. I'm not going to get vaccinated. He can no longer play for the Nets because like 99% of the NBA. They are vaccinated. He will not be vaccinated, so he's taken a hit financially. So all these people came out to
another
protest.
one we won't be having to have a bake sale for.
Not at all.
If he loses a year.
Yeah, if he loses a year.
We won't have to like stand outside with, the friggin' pots at Christmas taking donations.
His yearly, what he's going to be losing is the gross national product of many countries.
You know what I'm saying?
So what I find just hilarious is that so there were all these like irate, mainly white people outside, free Kyrie. I'm sorry, where were these people when Colin Kaepernick decided to take a stand? Right. They were probably like, shut up and dribble, shut up and play. But suddenly Kyrie is Mr. Anti-Vax because he's going to do his own research. He's going to do
That's always my favorite.
I'm going to do my own research. Yeah. I'm going to Google, are vaccines really bad for you? And something's going to come up and I'll go, see, it's on Google. So Kyrie's an ass. And as Knick fans, we're very happy. Stay out.
I'm just like, watching those people try to bust through the doors of Barclays. I'm like, listen, you and I disagree with this. I am vaccinated. I've even had my booster shot.
I'm getting one on Friday.
I do not believe in mandatory vaccines. I just don't believe in telling I don't want everything I did was my choice. I am not down for anybody telling me something that I have to do to my body. But I'm also the person who would be like, so I know I got to sit this shit out because I'm not willing to do this thing. Right now. You know what I mean? So I understand not wanting, like, I'm worried about the city vaccine mandates that go into effect Friday when you see the percentage of police and EMT and fire people who are not. That is going to affect us if all of those people are now shut down from working. You know what I mean? I don't need to know that there's half the police. You're okay with having half the police in the city?
No, I'm
You're
okay
with having almost half the firemen in the city?
No, I'm okay with the fact that it's mandatory vaccines that nobody was anti-vax until this vaccine. Right. If you send your kid to public school,
not this kind of thing.
They were anti like childhood. Listen, if you send your kid to public school, they have to be vaccinated. If you have a baby, you have to have a car seat. This is public. It's a public safety issue. It'd be one thing if this was mandatory vaccines last December when we were all sort of like, what's going on with this? Now it's like, get over yourself. You're a policeman. Your job is to protect and serve. You are not protecting. You are not serving. If you are not, when unmasked policemen are throwing people off the trains for asking them to put on a mask, bullshit. Put on a mask. Put on a mask and get back. They don't have to get vaccinated. They can get tested once a week.
That's the thing. For some, they didn't give the city people testing options. That is my problem with it. Amy.
Well, I think they should.
No, then
you're public servant.
Then give them testing options. I just like I believe we should not tell a woman what she could do with her body at all. I don't think we should tell anybody what they should be able to do with
Courtney,
their body.
the difference is if I have an abortion, it's not going to make you sick.
I understand that, but still,
totally different.
I don't feel like I should tell you know your health and what's going on. I don't feel like I should tell you need to take this vaccine because this thing is going on. Then it should be like you still have to wear a mask and you have to get tested twice, 3 times a week.
Well, they're not wearing masks.
I believe you should have that option. I am not down for because I feel like with this government and where we are, I don't believe in giving them that permission to tell people to do that. Give them a testing option.
I will tell you this. If Trump were president, the NYPD would be taking that vaccine. This is totally political.
If Trump was president, he would put in some statement, there'd be no vaccine mandates.
Not at all. I mean, we're going to
don't worry. We'll see soon because the Democrats are about to lose in the midterm elections anyway. And they're probably going like Joe Biden is doing such a terrible job. Even I won't vote for him again. That's just it.
Well,
so
I don't. Yeah, we are going to agree to disagree on this one. We're going to agree to disagree. Totally agree to disagree.
I know we do. And it's okay.
No, it's perfectly fine.
And I'm not an anti-vax person. You know me. Went right up and got my booster shot. No tea, no shade. And you saw me really on the hunt. Like when you were a teacher, you got to get your vaccine. You saw me on the hunt. Like I want this shit because I knew too many people who died and the people I knew who got it and were really sick. It just didn't sound like anything I ever wanted to experience.
No, it's horrible.
Yeah, so I was really, really, that. So I would love to see people just get it. I just don't like the idea of them being like, you get it or else you lose your job. I'm not really down for that.
Then lose their job. You took an oath.
Hardcore,
you took an oath.
Baby,
no,
New
it's
York
a public health issue. And this is the only time the police, first off, the police union, fuck the police union. All right. You know damn well that the police union is a right-wing, very racist kind of, that guy is this is getting to, we're going to agree to disagree on this one, but I'm getting my booster on Friday and I'm very excited. Can we talk about something a little happier? You want to talk about the beginning of it's something we agree on is that our love for Issa Rae. All right. So why don't you can intro it. Insecure's
5th and final season. Yay, boo, sad. Started this past Sunday. And, I think that what has impressed me the most about this show is the fact that Issa gave a lot of Black people really important jobs and people of color behind the scenes, like the kind of things that will really help them in Hollywood, like writer's room jobs, showrunner jobs, producer jobs, the kind of gigs that we get a lot of Black people in front of the camera. So it's a great show for that. And the writing was really great. And I love the first episode. And final seasons can be hard, right? Because people have so much expectation when they've fallen in love with characters. And, there's been a couple of final episodes and finales, especially on HBO, that people have not been happy with, and final seasons that people haven't been happy with. But I really thought that this was an excellent kickoff to their last season, showing me that it's going to be smart and well written, and I think we're going to be happy with how everybody ends up or where they end up.
Yeah, my only issue with the show is I still can't figure out how she affords those clothes working at a nonprofit, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, but she doesn't really, Issa doesn't really
Issa doesn't really
wear a bunch of designer clothes for her. No, not really. Not her character. Molly wears more designer than she does.
It's a fun show. It's really good. I fell kind of in love with it from the beginning. To me, I know more women like that than I know girls that were in Girls, but these are, it's a love letter to Black LA, which I like a lot. Fantastic music supervision. I think Raphael Sadiq is behind it.
Great music.
The director, whose name I'm going to totally mangle, but was a Black Greek woman. Melina, but I don't want to mangle her last name. Great, started in video, used this, did a film a couple years ago. But no, it's a fun series. She did
Queen and Slim, and she still does a bunch of videos. She's worked with a lot of my artists when I was at. Unlike, I mean, this is not, if it ends badly, it ends badly. Life goes on. But but we always want it to end well.
I'm not invested in it.
No, what I love, I love that show, and I think it was been an important show for Black people. And and for me, I want it to end great. Like, it doesn't have to have I'm not one of those that thinks that everything has to have a happy ending. I just like when things have been written well. I like them to end written well.
I just want her to get rid of Lawrence.
Well, she did on the first episode.
Well, the first episode. I just want her to get rid of him.
Yes, but I feel like, the thing that's interesting, right, is it just seemed like, because this is the first serious time that's back since really the pandemic and all of that, it feels like it's written with that in mind, like how so many people went through changes and decided what they really wanted for their lives during the pandemic, and just started forcing people to make change. I like that you could see what you see in her is actually her really growing up and realizing that what she doesn't want anymore and really trying to focus her life. And I think that ending of that, hopefully no spoiler breaks. I hope you
haven't watched it right now, whatever.
Yeah, but I do think that for some reason, I think this time, the way she said it and the way he knew, I think this is it. Because, that's that. Haven't you ever been at that place with somebody who you feel like you've been connected to for a long time, but it's not right. But when you have that one, when you've really come to the place where you're like, I can't, it's not it.
Well, I've never had an ex knock somebody up while we were together. So I will say that I've dodged that bullet. The only thing, it's interesting that we want to introduce Joe, but there's no indication that this is happening in the middle of a pandemic. Nobody's wearing a mask. It's really weird.
Right, which is good. I like that, right? You're just continuing the story, and sometimes you have it in and sometimes you have it out, and you created a fantasy world. But evidently, people are really upset because Amanda Seal's character is wearing, I guess, AKA paraphernalia and a lot of pink and green. And if you notice, you never really use real fraternity in anything Black. They always make up fraternities and sororities. And, that their paraphernalia and their colors, that is really protected. And folks are not happy.
I'm sorry. This is just a tragedy. How will we go on? Listen, all right.
We have AKs that listen to this show. What we don't need is them mad at us too. So you're going to stop right there. Thank you very much.
I didn't say anything negative about it. No. I didn't say anything negative about it.
That's the best way to get. They're a rough bunch, including my cousin Kim, who I had this debate with, who listens to our show. And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand why people are upset. Wrong.
Yeah, I joke. I was never in a fraternity. I was in the Girl Scouts, so I understand. You should not wear a Girl Scout uniform unless you're a Girl Scout.
But please come with the cookies, because I do love the cookies.
Those cookies. Oh,
let me just tell you something. The Thin Mints and the samosas.
Thin Mints should be mandatory.
I mean, they're so. And then I like them frozen.
Frozen Thin Mints should be mandatory. We'll have a conversation when it's Girl Scout season, because it is coming up. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
All right. We are going to introduce our friend Joe Kwaczala is coming up, and we cannot wait to talk to him. So here's Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
That's good. Oh, hi.
Hello.
You're usually Joe, Courtney, Joe.
Hi, Courtney. Hello.
Hey, howdy.
I always forget that I always thought you were an East Coast person, and that is the best compliment I can give you. No, you
Absolutely.
really. I
you.
found out that you lived on the West Coast, I was like, wow, he is pulling the greatest con of all time.
I appreciate that. You never want to be the guy who's like, yeah, you've got a real Los Angeles vibe.
No, you totally. I'm giving you totally.
Well, that would include like a hat, because there's always a hat involved.
No, I had a whole backstory for you. I was like the son of civil servants from a town outside of Pittsburgh. That was my whole backstory for you.
I mean, that's pretty close.
Oh,
I mean,
good. Oh, good.
I'm from the northern suburbs of Pittsburgh. And my mom worked for a food bank, so you're like,
we're like related. Well, anyway, welcome to you, Joe, from the fabulous Who Cares About the Rock Hall podcast, which you do.
Okay, can I just start with this question?
Yeah.
Like, what did you wake up one day and you were just like, I'm really interested in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Let me do a podcast on that. Like, how did that start?
I know. I think, it's hard to pinpoint a specific inciting incident, but I think I kind of grew up a VH1 kid. It was like, I don't know,
Did you watch me on Four on the Floor?
Four on the Floor, somehow Four on the Floor went over my
It's all right.
missed me somehow.
It's all right.
But like when I was, I guess coming of age or like kind of learning, I was very in that very absorbent period. That's when VH1 was doing a lot of lists and doing a lot of the 100 greatest whatever, and I love the 80s, and it just felt like a real pop culture primer. And one of the things that was on VH1 at that time was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies that they would broadcast, and so it was like, okay, that was all part of my education in rock in music history. And I think it was that plus my dad's from Cleveland, so we would go to Cleveland to like visit my grandparents and stuff, and we would go to the museum, and I found there was a really good classic rock station in Pittsburgh as well, so I would like listen to that, and like they would play like deep cuts, and so I don't know, it all kind of like came together in a way where years later, I found out other people were not paying attention to the Rock Hall,
right?
And that was surprising to me.
Go figure. Yeah, well, so that's Kristen Studdard, who is the mirror to your Stiller, I suppose, or something like that.
Sure. Although we are not romantically involved.
No. Well,
to be clear,
I'm sorry. I'm not. Okay, so she's the May to your Nichols.
would it be arrogant if I said the Robin to my Stern?
No.
That actually,
in fact, high compliment. At least you didn't say the Baba Booey to your Stern.
Right? No. I think because that's what I mean. I think we established that, or we mentioned that as a reference early on in the show, and she said I'm like the Robin. And I said, to my Batman? That wasn't good. I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. So she sort of plays the role of like, really? Who cares about this?
Yeah, grounding the conversation for the average listener, because we can get pretty inside baseball, but I don't want it to be that way. I want anyone to be able to listen to it and understand what's going on. So if like we're talking about this, kind of esoteric thing, she can chime in and be like, what are you talking about? When did this happen? Who are these people? Why would this, et cetera, et cetera.
That sounds like me and Courtney on basically every issue with me taking that position. Like, yeah, whatever, who cares? Well, okay, so I have said this before, full disclosure, I am in the illustrious Opus Dei Illuminati, the secret, password, the cabal. Yes. I always call it Opus Dei with deli with snacks, but we don't even get that because we've been on Zoom. I am on the nominating committee. I'm the person that everybody hates. I get tons of Twitter going, why isn't blah, blah, blah in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I'm like, yeah, whatever. Leave me alone. So I have promised you that when I do leave by my own decision or by their decision, I will spill everything. But for obvious reasons, I cannot say a lot about a lot. But I will ask you if what do you think have been the biggest surprises for this year in terms of the inductions or lack thereof?
Yeah. So, I mean, for decades, the Hall has been kind of stubborn about this technicality with two artists, Tina Turner and Carole King, who were in already, but their inductions did not fully encompass the significance of their careers. Tina Turner being only inducted with Ike, and Carole King only being inducted as a songwriter with Jerry Goffin. And, there had been a lot of noise on, I don't know about a lot of noise. In my world, it seems like a lot of noise
in your head, but noise in your head.
A lot of noise in my head, yeah. But, the fact that Tina Turner had a significant solo career by herself and that Carole King had a performing career by herself, and neither of those things were technically acknowledged, I did not see the Hall ever rectifying that. And the fact that they did both at the same time, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I have something to say about that.
Please go off.
I thought it was great that Carole King got in as a songwriter. I think it's fine that she got in as a performer, but like I said to Amy, I think she got in because of Tapestry. Like if you really ask people about, and to me, I don't know how that jumped over a Dionne Warwick, who really, that recording career went from, the 60s through the 90s of really being relevant and having so many records, so many hits. And really, she was that international Black superstar who played around the world. She was the Whitney Houston of her day. And while I do think Carole is very deserving, I'm like, how did that get over a Dionne who I really felt like, when she made it onto the short list, I was like, holy shit, like I never really thought about Dionne for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it made perfect sense.
And and Chaka Khan, you and I, we've all had this conversation. That shock, I did not vote for Carole King because talking to Courtney about it, I suddenly realized, name another album besides Tapestry, and I couldn't. And Tapestry changed all our lives. If you were a depressed, long-haired teenage girl in the suburbs, you listened to Tapestry,
right,
singing about the love you hadn't even had yet because you were 13 and a virgin, but you sung along with it. I could have been very happy with her saying as a songwriter, but Tina, I think it's like that was a no-brainer. I mean, that was a no-brainer. But the Chaka Khan thing blows our collective mind.
I just don't. Right, Chaka Khan has sang with everybody, everyone, she's still singing. She's playing here next weekend. That just at this point, I feel like you guys have to give her one of those special recognition slots and just put her in there because it makes no sense. It's almost like they're never going to vote for her. So she has to be committee voted in.
Yeah, I get the sense that is likely to happen if we do not see her. I would predict that it'll happen as soon as next year because we're starting to see that, like with the LL Cool J getting in the side door in a category that previously had not really been established for him in any way. That category used to mean something specific. The musical excellence category I am referring to.
Right. I thought it was something different.
It was where they acknowledged like an Ahmet Ertegun, or they acknowledged more non-musicians.
If I can butt in and be the encyclopedic robot who knows too much about this.
That's why you're on.
Yeah. So that's, the non-performer category is like for your Ahmet Erteguns and, for Jack Holzman, whoever. And they've named it the Ahmet Ertegun Award. That's what's going to Clarence Avant this year. But the musical excellence category used to be called the sideman category. Right. And it has evolved into the musical excellence category so they can broaden it a little bit. So, in the beginning, it used to be session musicians, Hal Blaine, James Jamerson, guys like that, who, played on a million records, but their name wasn't on the front.
Right.
And then when they seem to want to make it a little more malleable, like say for a Leon Russell, who was a session musician, but also had a solo career, you know, and also did so many other things that just his solo career would not fully encompass his impact. Same thing with, and I think Billy Preston this year is a perfect example of that same thing that they're trying to do. Yeah, he played with the Stones, he played with the Beatles, but he also had all these great songs by himself. He also wrote songs, et cetera, et cetera. And that seemed to be what the category was for. But then you put in LL Cool J, it becomes pretty obvious. This is also just a catch-all category for someone you can't get in through.
And Kraftwerk as well.
Normal Kraftwerk is early influence. So they have also started to bend the rules of what that means as well. Because the early influence used to mean pre-rock, you know, and so like Charlie Patton this year makes perfect sense, you know, and it's for your Robert Johnsons. You know, it's meant for the artists that came before the rock era. And they've started, and they, in the years past, have kind of bended those rules a little bit to put like Freddie King or Wanda Jackson in there when they aren't exactly pre-rock, but still they're early enough that you can get away with it. But then you put in Gil Scott-Heron and Kraftwerk, and you're like, okay,
right.
we are changing the rules to widen the net.
Joe, I have a question for you. And Karen Glover, who is another non-com member and a friend, and Todd Rundgren, whisperer and super fan, you could make the argument that Todd Rundgren belongs in that musical excellence because he is as well known as a producer, and I would venture to say his influence is even stronger as a producer, you know, than it is as a performer. So
I think so. Yeah, I think he was certainly a candidate for that category, but I also think if you can get someone in the normal voting way, then you will do that. Because you like we're saying, this category, it seems like either they don't think they can get in through the normal way, or it's like Nile Rodgers is another person who got in as musical excellence, and famously Chic was nominated a historic 11 times.
The Susan Lucci of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Truly, I don't think anyone is ever going to hit that number of nominations again. I think at this point, the Hall will do something about it before we reach that level, that embarrassing level of nominations.
All right, so I don't have the poop on this. Courtney doesn't have the poop on this. But do you have any idea, like, who gets the most vote? Like I know you have your spies everywhere.
No, I mean, I have my theories, but I can. It depends on, like, are you asking about anybody specifically? Are you asking about like this year?
Yeah, this year.
I mean, I would.
I have one. I have a specific one.
I'd bet a lot of money Tina Turner got the most votes.
Yeah. But what about Pat Benatar? To me, I thought Pat Benatar should have been a lock.
Courtney is still crying about this.
I cannot.
You should. We should all be crying. It's our loss.
Understand how Pat Benatar did not get enough votes to get into the Rock Hall. Like, how is that humanly possible?
It doesn't make any sense. And we considered her of that year like the lock, you know, because she checked so many boxes. Right. You can always count on a classic rock act to get in.
Right.
That's easy money. And that year, and that was just last year. So that was also like, it was like Doobie Brothers and Pat Benatar getting in, no problem. But then it's also like, how often do you get someone who's so purely classic rock, but also you can assuage the guilt of the Rock Hall voters by giving them a woman, and it doesn't have to defy any genres. It is pure rock the way the Rock Hall usually goes for it. So it should be such an easy choice.
Headlined arenas, hit album after hit album after hit album, like did that shit, man. Stayed on the road, everything, and then it was like boom. No Pat. And I was just like, I need somebody to make me understand.
Yeah, I think I can do that. I think I can, and this is all me theorizing. I obviously do not know what happened. I think it is the 80s career, the softer stuff, the We Belong Togethers, that, you know, taking away from the, you know, more pure rock stuff. I think with the kind of, there are a lot of voters in the Rock Hall who I think are purists in that way. And that kind of stuff can hang them up, where they want someone, you know, who's like, oh, I want a classic challenging album. And it's like, that's not what Pat Benatar did. Right. And like, that's not taking anything away from her. She put out incredible singles, like rocking, but also at times, you know, on the spectrum of pop as well. I think that's part of the reason why the Heels were drug with Tina, was because, you know, you look at the Ike and Tina stuff, and that's more, and then the big quotes, rock and roll, than say, you know, the 80s production output. I think that's involved. I also don't think Pat Benatar was really engaging too much in the process. I don't know how much that ultimately affects her likelihood, but I think if you get the sense that an artist really wants it, like I look at the Go-Go's this year, who were like, all of them were active on Twitter, and, you know, even taking it, they also had the benefit of a great publicity.
I mean, that sounds like some shit with women, because Radiohead very much acted like they didn't want it, right? And
they did not get in their first year, though.
Right, but they're in.
Yeah, but they also, they make Radiohead fills. I want to get back to something you said about Pat, because it's something interesting about Radiohead makes the Rock Hall look cool. And Absolutely. Radiohead brings in a younger, I mean, this was when they're shifting to a younger.
But that, again, it sounds like some men shit, right? Because they know they have a woman problem. It would have looked cool to put Pat Benatar in there as a woman who stood out there and did it for decades as the one.
Well, I think that there's two things maybe happen. Maybe it's possible that everybody thought she was going to get in, and so they didn't vote for her.
That's a good theory.
I did it. I mean, off the record, I did not vote for Janet, even though I thought Janet was more than deserving, because I knew she was a lock. That I knew. But I also think it's funny what you said about We Belong, because that's my favorite Pat Benatar song. And
shout out to Tropico. That's a great album.
I'm sorry, but like the Doobie Brothers have like schmaltzy songs. Chicago is like schmaltz central. Journey, are you kidding me? Schmaltzorama. Heart has schmaltzy stuff too. So like all of a sudden the Rock Hall goes, oh no, there's a song where she's not screaming in spandex. We can't let her in. I don't know, Joe. I think it's the politics. Yeah. I think it's the politics. I think it's
and she didn't engage at all. Like I never saw really any acknowledgement of the announcement.
Not at all. So Tina had the documentary. Yeah, she's older.
Now, Joe, what about Eurythmics? I thought they were a lock as well. I'm like, they check a lot of boxes for who they were, the music they wrote, hits here, hits around the world, Annie Lennox. They gave you I feel like they really came along. Nobody looked like them, sounded like them, and had solid years of back-to-back hit albums. To me, it seemed like something that the Rock Hall would like. Innovative, still nobody sounds like them. We still really respected. Why didn't they get it? Yeah,
they're well liked too. Like in the industry, both Dave and Annie, like, you know, have worked with a lot of people. So I think that is I would chalk that up to some stiff competition that year. There were a lot of like classic rock acts who had long been snubbed and were primed to be inducted that year. It ended up for being kind of a boring year. It was 2018.
What was that year?
So you ended up getting the Moody Blues, Bon Jovi, the Cars, Dire Straits, all in the same year.
Okay. For those of you
listeners,
for those of you who are just listeners, Amy has now put a pretend gun to her head, because that was the year I went, I don't think nobody I voted for. And I was listening to Dire Straits last night for some reason. And I'm like, how did these guys get in?
I know.
How did these guys get in?
The bright spot of that year is Nina Simone got in, and then Sister Rosetta Tharpe as early influence. But still, you just have so many artists who are in kind of a similar lane. But I think the competition was just stiff in a way that, like, those four acts that I said are that is catnip for the typical boring Rock Hall voter that you can kind of count on, that like that's what they're gonna go for.
You mean my always favorite hip hop isn't rock and roll, man. Hip hop isn't rock and roll. It's like, oh my God, it's 2021 and we're still having this conversation. Oh my God, why are we still having this conversation? And
that would have been 2018 would have been. See, the other thing about 2018 is that was the year Radiohead did not get in. When they became eligible, which was such a shock, because you would think like, oh yeah, they're going to be one of the gimmies of obvious first year eligible new bands, like of their generation, like who's more important of a rock band, and they didn't get in that year either. And so, you know, the pull of Dire Straits is just too enticing.
I mean, no disrespect to the guy. He's in Sultans of Swing is a great song. He's a great guitar player.
But it's like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Well, I always used to do it before I was.
I'm happy for everybody if you get in, but when you see who some people beat, you're like,
I mean, who have they? I used to win before I was to the exalted status. I used to just look at my ballot and go, okay, who do I like? Obviously, but who have they influenced? Who has Dire Straits influenced? Nobody. New York Dolls have influenced everybody and their motherfucking mother. Excuse my French. But who have you influenced? You've influenced nobody. All right, and he's, from what I understand, he's not a nice guy. And
seems like a prickly pear. He didn't show up. He didn't show up to the ceremony famously, and then like their bass player gave the induction speech for themselves.
Yeah, they inducted themselves. I'd like to give myself the Academy Award. I mean, it's
and that's not their fault. That is the Hall's fault, and that should have been handled differently, because that is, regardless of what you think of an artist, you make them induct themselves for the first time in Rock Hall history. Yeah. That's like a slap in the face.
Yeah, it's like here's your thing. We'll meet you in the parking lot near the Burger King.
That makes it seem like everybody else said no that they asked. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you're going to be inducting yourself.
Yeah, right.
It's like, what?
Figure it out.
So next year, I don't even. You probably know who is up next year. The big ones. Big one's
Eminem.
Oh, so that's. Can we agree now? Can we make our predictions now that that's a lock?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. That's really the only big one for next year. And so that's one that I would. And you know, I feel like for the first time in some time, we have maybe an opening for Rage to not have to compete against another, 90s kind of alt rock.
Tom Morello has a column now in the New York Times. No, and I like Tom. He's a really nice guy, but I think this is basically, I mean, how does that work? Considering the fact that he's a very vocal part of the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I know.
I mean, what does his name come up and everybody just sits silently? And
yes.
I think. Well, my theory is that Rage is just.
Yes.
They're always on a ballot that is a little hard for them, and I think they're always just outside. You know, I don't think they're doing poorly on the ballot, but I think they're coming in at the top of the middle and just missing the cut. And I always think it's because, and again, you have to get in the mindset of these voters who are not, you know, the most. They're not the most exciting bunch, and so at the moment I kind of think like, all right, usually if there's a newly eligible act, a 90s act, it's one through the door a year, you know, and so, you know, they're going up against, like, this year was Foo Fighters, or it's Pearl Jam, or it's whoever they have to kind of fight against to try and get through the door. Or Nine Inch Nails. Like, it shouldn't have to be that way. We should be able, the same way with hip hop, we should be able to have more than one through the door. But if you're thinking realistically about the way these people think, you can give it slots, and then your predictions will be pretty on point.
I actually think one of the problems with Rage is a lot of people know their name but don't know their music. I think a lot of people, if you say Rage Against the Machine, I know their name. They know them. They know that they were important, but they don't really know their music, you know?
Yeah, I wonder if that's because I think about my generation and like, you know, someone who like I was born in 1987. And so rage.
This conversation is over. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you for coming on. Like,
Thanks,
but it's interesting. Because, I mean, like, and obviously
I was already out of high school.
I had a baby. I had a baby 2 years after you were born.
I could hang out with that adult baby now.
Who has a baby, for Christ's sake?
Like, think for your generation, do you feel like they may know the name Rage?
Yes. Oh no, like we know like a dozen songs.
Right.
Yeah. But the thing is, nobody in my generation has a ballot.
Right.
You know, like it's mostly you have to think like a boomer, I think, when you are thinking about.
I resemble that.
Well, didn't they? I thought they.
Sorry for rolling my eyes.
I thought when they brought new people in recently, because you said it, you know, there were some changes there, that there were some younger folks kind of brought into the face. So, Frey, that was not the case.
That might be the case.
I'm sorry, Joe. I was going to say we're talking about the voting body as opposed to the nom-com. It's a totally different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you know the nominating committee often makes interesting choices, and then they make the ballot, which you'll see a lot of great names on the ballot that then have to go to ... the voting body, and that is like 1,000-ish people. Where if you think the nominating committee is shadowy, like at the very least we have the names of the people on the nominating committee. The voting body, there's no.
Or do you?
Hey, Amy,
for the most part,
you're the one. You can't speak in this portion of our show. You want to
be quiet.
You want to
I'll be going out and getting a cup of coffee.
Yeah, you want to stay in your vaulted position of. You know what I'm saying? All
right, I'll be putting my feet up. Go, Courtney.
But it's you have to think of the voting body. You know, it can and is all sorts of different people. But the way I think of it is like, all right, it's mostly people who've been inducted. So it's like, who's Gene Simmons voting for?
Right. Right. Right.
And, you know, there's a perpetuating cycle of like, you induct 8 members of Journey. Mm-hmm. They all vote now. And they are probably going to vote for artists who make similar music to Journey. And what is difficult is the Rock Hall in recent years have not inducted. I mean, they've inducted a lot of white guy bands,
right?
And then they will induct a posthumous black person, you know. And then said
they love, if you're black, honey, if you're dead, you're in. Donna Summer, because I said to a friend of mine, I was like, if Donna Summer was alive, she would not be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They would not. They would.
Oh, I mean,
they would be like, oh no, she's disco. But the fact that she
basically
died,
been proven, because she was alive and on the ballot about 5 times, and then as soon as she died, she got in.
Whitney Houston getting in, I feel like they gave it to her because Whitney is dead. She had an amazing voice, but when you go back to it, she did not produce her record. She did not write. You know what I mean? And if she was alive, I think a lot of people would debate whether she should be there because she didn't produce the records and she didn't write them.
Yeah, I see the hall changing a little bit. We're starting to be able to understand that an artist can have value if they didn't write their songs. Right. I mean, it was okay if it was Elvis.
Or the Supremes. You have to basically knock out every Motown act except for Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye if that were the criteria. I mean, writing and producing.
Yeah. So, what were we saying? The hall is bad?
The hall is bad. No. Courtney was saying that.
No, I don't think the hall is bad. I do think that they have a black woman problem. Saying you put Aretha Franklin and it's like, okay, she's Aretha Franklin. She got in there the first. Great. But it's like, it seems to be a lot of the black women other than Janet. And I feel like Janet got in that year. There was just so much momentum. Really, it had all come out how Les Moonves really
stuff absolutely
derailed her, all of that. And
it was a perfect storm.
And I think that was the moment to say, as the music industry, we stand behind you, Janet. That was perfect. But if you think of all of the other black women, other than like Gladys Knight, she was alive and she got it. And Tina is alive, but Tina's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Most of the black women have been dead.
Oh, yes. And I mean, listen, this year, and Amy knows this, I worked the phones. So I was calling up voters to not only hear who they're voting for, but if they hadn't filled out their ballot yet, start to make a case for my artists. And that's one of the things I brought up to a lot of voters, because when I one thing that was kind of surprising, or maybe not surprising, with some of these voters is they're not familiar with the context of the hall. They don't know who's been inducted recently. They're just kind of looking at the names in front of them. And that's something I brought up. And I did it in with facts, with statistics. And I was pushing for Dion pretty hard.
I voted for Dion because of you. No, I did. I decided because I like you guys. And I said, you know what? That's what friends are for.
Hey, right. We learn and we listen from Dion's work. But if you look at it through that lens, your options, I mean, sometimes you got to pull the guilt, but it's also justice. It's like you look at who has been inducted, and it's mostly, even if you take it beyond Black women and just Black artists, it's like Whitney, Biggie, Tupac, Donna Summer, Nina Simone,
Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Yes,
Isn't
there
she?
are not.
Yeah, but we're
they're
talking
not
all the people
living.
They're all dead.
Right.
The when you look at that and see the fact that the hall just does not induct living Black people, it should make the choices pretty obvious. And I've been trying to push, and Amy knows this, put in some Black bands, put in Kool and the Gang,
right?
Where you can get, maybe four. And it's been, since I've been preaching this, a few of them have passed away. And so it's getting, it's the priority, I think, is high. I think it's still at this point, you can get maybe 4 or 5 living members of Kool and the Gang. At one point, if we had been on this, it could have been many, many more. But I think, I think about there are a lot of great bands, groups.
I nominated Gap Band one year, and it did not. Did they make it onto the ballot? I don't know.
No,
Okay.
they did not. I think. See, I think strategically too. I think there are bands and artists before the Gap Band that have a little more of a body of work and a mainstream acceptance. Like, Kool and the Gang. You look at their hits, and you can. Maybe it's easy to forget, but like you look at Kool and the Gang's hits over. And they were one of the 70s funk bands.
Look at the Commodores. Look at the Commodores.
Yes.
Hits. Look at the Brothers Johnson. Look at their hits.
The Commodores were brought up this year. Actually, they were.
And look, Lionel Richie's inducting Clarence Avant this year. That might be might be setting up.
So speaking of this year, Joe, what do you think about this year's class, and what are your thoughts?
I'm pleased. I really wanted Dion, but otherwise, like this class was predictable when you put on the ballot, in a good way, though.
Right.
The Go-Go's getting in the first female rock band to be inducted. That's very exciting. I love that. And I love, half the acts are women. Tina, Carol, Go-Go's. And then I'm thrilled that Jay-Z's getting in. Jay-Z not getting in on his first year of eligibility would have been evidence of a flaw in the system, because he is he's a no-brainer to me. And I think that's great. And then, Foo Fighters, sure, great. I knew that was going to happen. All right. And then, I like Todd Rundgren. He's not showing up, but
he's not showing up.
No,
he's not. No, he's not. He's made it very clear.
And not only is he not showing up, isn't he playing a show like literally 5 minutes away?
He's in Cincinnati, so he'll be in state as a major troll move. Good work, Todd.
I love it in a way.
I absolutely think that's the most rock and roll thing to do, right? Being
right.
Like, not only am I like, fuck you, I'm not coming, I'm playing across the street.
Across the street. With a Jumbotron of my show.
I could do this.
That is
and
such
I'm
a big
available.
fuck you, that
Right.
I'm kinda
In the
like,
middle of
strong
COVID,
J, damn it.
I'll be indoors. I'll be indoors at another show. Let me.
What is his issue with showing up? Is he like?
He's cranky. He's
He's
cranky.
cranky. He's cranky.
And it's that thing of like he's
It took
probably
too
a
long
little
for him to get in. So he's
ornery about the time it took and the fact that he'd been on the ballot a few times before he got in. It's like get over yourself.
You know why I love that? Because the kids will do that bullshit. They're like, I'm not showing her up, but trust me, his people immediately on all of his materials will have Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, all class up, blah, 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 blah. Like, you don't want to show up, but you're not like, don't send the shit to my house.
I know.
So who do you think is going to induct Jay-Z?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who do you think?
Oh, man. So
I have a theory.
I've been, because that's the one they haven't announced. And I've been theorizing about it at length. So I have a few, I have some like balls to the walls, crazy ideas. Because I think about the excellence that will be in the building, whether it's Carole King or Paul McCartney or Lionel Richie, or I just keep being drawn in my head from some of the people who are going to be there to former President Barack Obama.
I think Obama. Listen, I think Obama. I really do. LeBron would make sense because of their relationship, and he's an Ohio guy.
It's Cleveland, yeah.
He's an Ohio guy.
That's another one.
Kendrick already inducted somebody. I don't think Kendrick's going to do it.
But Kendrick, I don't think the Kendrick that
has that pull.
No, I don't think that's really. He's West Coast. I don't think that's connection to Jay in a certain way. I think Kendrick would make more sense with like an Eminem next year, because that's all connected through Dr. Dre and all of that. Yeah, but that kind of stuff.
And he's inducted though. That's the thing about he has inducted.
He inducted NWA, which makes a lot of sense.
I really think Obama. I think it's possible. I
think, and you think about like, why aren't they announcing it? Maybe because of certain security precautions.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking about it because Barack is in the. I was
going to say Barack. I would like Barack. Who's
Barry.
Barry.
He's in the Clarence Avant documentary.
Yeah.
He's in The Black Godfather. I was doing a little research, just kind of like looking at the connections with stuff like, okay, Dave Grohl performed for Paul McCartney when Paul McCartney got a Gershwin Award. And I was like, okay, so this is a little bit like a tit for tat. And then who's sitting next to Paul McCartney at the Gershwin Awards is Obama. And then I was watching when listen, I know the president's like involved with the Gershwin Awards, but like he just kept popping up. He's giving a speech about Carole King at her Gershwin Awards. And then all, these people like LL Cool J and others, Tina and Carole King have all gotten Kennedy Center honors. And it's just like, you think about the president again. And it would be wild, and Kristen has yelled at me for even bringing up the possibility of putting her hopes up.
I think Obama's going to induct Clarence Avant. I think Beyonce.
No, Lionel Richie is inducting.
I think Beyonce is going to do induct Jay for some reason.
I think Beyonce's inducting Tina.
No,
Angela Bassett.
Angela Bassett is inducting Tina.
Well, I think it's going to be Obama because Jay-Z's president is black. Are already said it, right?
Right. Yeah.
I really think it's either Obama or LeBron. I think those are the only two people who are big enough.
LeBron, right? Don't the Lakers, if the Lakers don't have a game on Saturday night.
They don't. Do you think I haven't? You think I haven't looked this up?
The plot thickens.
So they have a game on Friday. They are actually playing the Cavs, but they're playing in LA.
They're planes.
But he's got a plane. So
he's got a plane.
If you need, if LeBron wants to go somewhere,
he needs to get to Cleveland. That's not an issue.
All right.
No way.
Joe, we could literally talk to you all night, and we will. We will talk to you all night.
Who else is on the class this year? Who else?
Okay, so the performers, it's Tina, Carol, Go-Go's, Jay-Z, Foo Fighters, Todd Rundgren, and then they have a very large, and this is exciting, although I wish there were more women in these side categories. You have Clarence Avant going in as a non-performer. In the early influence, you have Kraftwerk, Gil Scott-Heron, and Charlie Patton. In musical excellence, you have Randy Rhoads, Billy Preston, and LL Cool J.
Are they going to do those inductions? Are they going to induct those guys on stage, or are they going to do it like off camera? Because I'm thinking when you bring in someone like LL, you do want to get your most airtime out of it.
They are treating LL like a normal inductee.
Gotcha.
Like he's not being side-doored. They are, in all the promotional materials, it's just like he's one of the inductees.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, if you know,
Yeah. But if you don't know, you don't know.
I get the sense, and I get the sense, just given that they can't go for 9 hours, that a lot of the side categories are going to be very swift inductions, meaning maybe just a package. Like, I know Clarence Avon is getting a speech from Lionel Richie, but I don't know. And I worry. Wouldn't it be cool if Kraftwerk was there? They're not going to be there.
Right.
Because I don't think I don't think they know they're getting inducted.
Really?
That's my theory. They're just like famously hard to get a hold of.
Because they're robots. They're robots.
They are. Yeah. I would love it if they sent robots to accept.
Or sent Daft Punk.
And we know for sure
them.
they're not going to be there.
Yeah, they're not.
We don't know for sure, but like we could be pretty confident that they're probably not.
I think Tom Morello is going to make something about Randy Rhoads.
Rhoads.
Yeah. I think that's kind of, makes the most sonic. And that also, I think that's the connection. I think there's a real honest connection there.
And I think he personally pushed for Randy pretty hard. But I don't know how they're going to handle this stuff. You would love to see some sort of performance, especially for, Billy Preston and Gil Scott-Heron. I think there could be really cool performances with, newer, exciting artists. But
and who's airing this?
HBO.
And are they're not doing it live like it used to be? Are we going back to taping it and then having to see it like a month later or some bullshit?
Yeah, it will be edited down and then it'll come out at the end of November.
I don't think it's been live for,
it hasn't been live since like the Fuse days.
Right. But I used to love it live. You know what I mean? I used to love it live. Because now I feel like I just can go online and see everything because people in the audience tape everything. So I just watch the shit as it's happening.
Yeah, watch the worst recorded video. Grainy, terrible sound. Yeah.
All right. Joe, it's great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. I'm glad I could do this in a way where I didn't have to wake up at 6:30 because I'm on the East Coast.
What's wrong with waking up at 6:30, Joe? Courtney and I do that all the time.
You guys wouldn't like me when I'm up at 6:30.
Oh, why do you think we like? Well, we don't like you now, Joe.
Well, just wait and see.
We wanted Robin. Where's Robin?
Right? Yeah. Put up a bad signal.
All right, Courtney, please do
let's
that thing you do so well.
Well, guys, thank you for tuning in and listening to us on another spectacular and stellar show filled with fuckery and love on I'ma Let You Finish. It's part of the Pantheon podcast network. Thank you to our guest, Joe, whose last name I'm not trying to fuck up. So I'm just going to say Joe from the Rock, Who Cares About the Rock Hall podcast, which is also on the Pantheon podcast network. And you know the deal, guys. Remember, when you listen to our show, wherever you listen to us, and thank you, because we're at Apple, Google, I can't even think of them all, Spotify, iHeart. Remember to leave a rating, leave a review, tell your friends. Also, thank you for all of the participation and talking to us on our Facebook at I'ma Let You Finish, or one word. We love speaking to you guys there. We love talking to you on Twitter at FinishIma. We also, listen, you know the deal. We love you. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
It's NFL draft season, and that means it's time to start thinking about fantasy football. FantasyPoints.com features industry-leading experts and prognosticators using proprietary hand-charted data to help you score more fantasy points. FantasyPoints.com is the place to go for whatever kind of fantasy football you play. Whether you play fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, or do a little bit of everything, Fantasy Points has the meticulously researched content to guide you to victory. And why wait for the fall? Fantasy Points also covers the new spring football league, the UFL. Join the guru, John Hansen, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, and other massive names in the fantasy football universe with an exclusive offer. Use code Pantheon for 15% off any Fantasy Points package, including the all-in package, with access to every article, tool, and data nugget that Fantasy Points has to offer. That's fantasypoints.com and code Pantheon for 15% off at Fantasy Points. Fantasypoints.com, code Pantheon. Score more fantasy points.